How you all feel tonight?
Stop. I can't take it anymore.
Oh, I do the live ones too. Yes, I know. I saw your act in the theater. You're really quite good.
Quite a certain harmful habit.
Stop it now, I mean it.
Hello and welcome. We are breaking up with RBS. This is episode number 72, and I am Tawny Santabria.
And I am JDK Winnikin. It's easy to lose track of those numbers, isn't it?
Yeah. I got to be like 72, and then I blurt out 73. No.
That's all right. It's another episode. That's what
Yes,
matters.
yes.
And good to see you, of course, Tawny, as always. And thank you to all of you listening out there. Please, thank you so much for doing so. Tripping over myself this morning. If you're listening to this live, good morning. If you're listening to this as a podcast, thank you so much for doing so. Thank you for subscribing, for leaving us a review. Thank you for sharing it also. That's really helpful. You can also check out the video feed of every episode at our YouTube channel page, which is Breaking Up with RBS. We also have a Facebook group of the same name that you can join and get content in between and get updates and communicate with us directly. And Tawny also has a 6-week self-mastery course at unperfectyourself.com that you can sign up for and apply all the principles that we talk about here in the context of your own life. And I couldn't get all that in one breath, but in the next breath, I'll say, coming up on February 11th, we have a new offering that we'd like to tell you about.
A free online workshop where we're going to do some practices. We're going to do some Q&A. We're going to learn about the stress response. Saturday, February 11th, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And the registration link is going to be in our Facebook group and YouTube's.
Yep.
And probably other places.
Places where you can easily find them.
Yep.
And we'd love to have you attend that, and it'll be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, it'll be super fun.
Ooh, we're moving and grooving.
Yes, we are.
Fun stuff and more on the way.
Yes, of course.
I like to
always.
give those little teasers.
I know. You're so, drama. Like, ooh.
I know. I like to
you
keep
like
people
to keep
on the edge.
people on the edge. Yeah, it's true. It's
on
true.
the edge. I do have that. I do have that side.
Yes, you do.
Nevertheless. So I was thinking about something this week.
What were you thinking?
I was thinking about curiosity.
Yeah, you were thinking about curiosity.
I said
Tell
it that
me
way
more.
on purpose.
Tell
I
me
said it that
more.
way on purpose.
Yeah.
I noticed that I was thinking about curiosity because I had some experiences in the last week or so where kind of some old BS stories around some other things got sort of worked their way into some areas of my life. And it took me a little while to notice them there. And it brought me back around to the idea of kind of leaving questions open-ended and being curious about things rather than worrying about things. Last week, we talked about the doom shoe, right? The other shoe dropping.
Shoe of doom.
Right.
Yes.
That's a lack of curiosity about what's happening with myself or what might the present offer or, these types of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I got thinking about
Mm-hmm.
curiosity, and I've been probably more in that state the last couple of days. But it was just this reminder of how important it is. And I thought I would just throw that out in front of you and see what curiosity brought up for you today.
Yeah, I am so curious about
My curiosity.
how you experience curiosity.
Well, honestly, on some level, from a body space, it's still a newer experience, and it's not my conditioned experience. Curiosity to me once meant, how do I find the answer? You ask the question to get the answer, to solve the problem, to get the solution. So that's what I always understood, for a long time understood curiosity to be. Got to get to an answer for something, a definitive reason. for
Gotta
something.
solve something.
Solve something. Curiosity from a body, that's mind space, right? And I recognize that difference. From a body space, what curiosity actually is really feels more like openness, wondering, not necessarily having to have an answer, right? The power of an open-ended question, letting that question just sit out there, And I was just reminded you've you've expressed a couple of those open-ended questions to me before that I've never tried to answer because the lesson was in them just remaining open, And I know that might sound real kind of esoteric for some people, but that's what curiosity feels like. That's how I experience it now.
Mm-hmm.
It's an openness. And what comes with that is a lot more ease in my body, a lot more okayness because I'm not seeking an answer, less stress, less mental noise.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I don't necessarily need an answer feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to lie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Can all of that be done with curiosity in the thinking space also?
I don't know definitively. I don't think so for me.
Mm.
I don't think, I mean, all those things, maybe, but and it's not that I just turn the thinking off,
Mm-hmm.
but from the body space, what my mind brings to me is really different than if I'm just
Mm-hmm.
leading from the head and ignoring everything else.
Sure. What if body and thinking space are connected?
Yeah. Yeah. What if?
Yeah. Because I'm wondering about, it's almost like, in the thinking space, that pressure to answer
Mm-hmm.
was mixed up in curiosity.
Could be.
And so, like, where does the pressure to answer come from?
Historically, for me, I want to control some sort of outcome, or I want the ease of thinking that the answer to something is going to give me something that I need, or will make something make sense, or will make me feel better. Usually. Curiosity for me usually was coming from a sense of urgency once upon a time.
Okay.
So, yeah, those are good questions. I'm not
Right.
sure if I have those fully untangled or not.
Okay. Because what's interesting is what you said was that it helped you to feel better.
Mm-hmm. I noticed that too when I said it. That's why I'm wearing this shirt. It says work in progress.
Work in progress. And this is why we talk about it, right? There's nothing wrong.
No.
We're all growing.
Right.
We're all growing. But
yeah, I don't know the answers to that.
totally. And just because the question, okay, newsflash. Just because we're asked a question, just because we're asked a question doesn't mean we need to know or find or worry about the answer.
Mm-hmm.
This is across all areas of our life. I just want to put this out here for a second because for whatever reason, sometimes we're asked a question and then we feel all pressurized to answer this question no matter how and what and where the question came from. So I just want to say, just because, I'll take the pressure off of everybody.
Uh-huh.
Just because you have randomly been asked a question by anybody doesn't mean that you actually have to answer it. So, whew, okay.
Every internet troll says you're wrong.
Exactly.
But that's an example of why not.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
I mean,
That pressure.
sometimes the question is asked of you to meet somebody else's need. So I'm just saying, curiosity helps us to kind of sort through layers. So we're getting back to this need to answer and solve for a question.
Yeah.
And we've been conditioned to believe that if somebody asks us a question, we have to find the answer.
Yeah.
Or know the answer.
Uh-huh.
Like right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And no. If we can kind of, just really let this thing go, you can say anytime you have an experience where somebody has asked you a question, you're going to take all the pressure off. It could be anybody, right? Again, no, you do not have to answer.
That's right.
That's number one. You do not have to answer. And you certainly could not have anticipated their question.
Right.
So you don't even have to know the answer.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Uh-huh.
So you get to decide and choose what comes next.
Yep.
We got sidetracked. I just had to say that.
It's not sidetracked. I think it's actually directly connected. Because then what comes with that would be something that else we might call sidetracking, but it's not. What is key for me on an integrated body and mind level with curiosity is the okayness of me not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
So the ability to say, I don't know, as a viable answer, whether you answer a question right away or not, or never. Being able to say, I don't know, is a liberating thing.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that, for me, saying I don't know for a long time was really hard. I used to think I always had to have some sort of answer.
Right. So here's the thing that's cool about this too. We're going to take it to another level.
Here we go.
Right? Okay. So if we are going to go all or nothing here, right? Because lots of people like to go all or nothing. Because again, we've been conditioned to go all or nothing. Well, if it's not this, then it means it's that, right? So, okay. So certainly there is a lot of things that we're going to miss if we pressurize ourselves to find the answer.
Yeah.
We're not going to sit in curiosity for very long.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to come up with the first thing that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to roll with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's your answer, right? The other side of that, if we always said, and I don't know, that's basically saying, hey, we're off the hook. I don't even need to
That's true.
find anything. I don't even need to be open to anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we want to be careful that, either end of this,
Yeah.
we just want to know that either end of this is going to limit our ability to really let enough of the stuff that might help us arrive.
That's true.
So we don't need a scripted answer, but we want to be able to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
We do have choice around how we want to answer, but knowing that I don't know sometimes can be an avoidance tactic.
Yes, that's true. That's a good point.
And then pressurizing ourselves to know the answer can
Mm-hmm.
also be a perfectionist sort of situation or a people-pleasing sort of situation.
Mm-hmm.
All of those
Yeah.
are not allowing us to be in a curious place. But, and I don't know, let me noodle on that. Somebody said noodle to me the other day.
Yeah. Noodle.
So I've said it a couple of times.
Let me noodle.
I never say noodle.
Let me
but now I
noodle.
am.
Yeah. Let me noodle on that.
But
Let me
yeah, you
think
can
about it.
noodle on that for a little. Let me see what comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a powerful thing. That's a
Mhm.
good point because the pendulum swing too far in either direction isn't
Yeah.
helpful. Yeah, and I think the idea of kind of not knowing, taking that pressure off, being curious about what might be possible. What I like about that is that it reinforces, without even me even thinking about it, my own ability to be in this moment to even do that in the first place. To not have to run with it. And and I think of like how many movies have we seen? And then how many times have we experienced in our own life that when a big thing comes to us, an idea, maybe a solution, and an option for something, it happens when we aren't sitting stressing about it. We're out doing something else. Right? Imagine main characters walking off somewhere trying to work some problem, and they happen to look around, and something they see gives them this idea.
Mm-hmm.
So often, that's exactly what happens when you're disconnected from the stress that you're injecting into this need to have an answer, or maybe even the avoidance of saying, I don't know, just out of habit. It's from that kind of space that oftentimes the next steps seem to come out of, which I've found to be true.
So I would say, going back to your open and sort of like you said, you felt open in your body around curiosity. Like you could be open in your mind too.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then whatever needs to arrive can show up whenever it does.
Right. Yeah. Because, part of the fun of when I'm engaged in like trying to find an answer of something from curiosities, it's fun to explore. It's fun to read. And sometimes I will deliberately make sure I'm reading a lot of stuff at a real flowed pace, not urgent to find an answer, but just to learn more. Wow, how are people talking about this?
Mm-hmm.
And I've gone down some pretty fun rabbit holes actually sometimes of like, oh wow, I didn't know that this is what people were talking about when it comes to this or that type of thing. And that can feed all of that, but my experience has been, when you're really pushing for an answer for something, you're probably going to find a lot more questions along the way. And that's not a bad thing either.
Or you're going to just come up with the first answer. Because we like to solve.
We do.
right? So, oh, this makes sense. Okay, there it is. That's it.
Mhm.
Right.
And want it to
And then
fit
away
quickly.
we go.
Yeah.
Right. Working off of something that actually might only be, like, it could be wrong, but it also could be just part of the
Yeah.
puzzle.
Right. Which is why you're not supposed to go on the internet to read about what might be wrong with you if you're sick. It's easy to
Yes.
find the one thing. That must be it.
Right. And then the shoe of doom
Then
is.
the shoe of doom is there.
Right.
Right.
Yes. So.
And we gravitate towards what might be the worst case and tell ourselves.
Right.
And all of a sudden it's BS domino after BS domino
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
falling down.
Yes.
And you're right. The other option of just putting your head in the sand and opting out. I'm not feeling well. I'm not going to find out anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is. That's not good either.
That's the avoidance and perhaps even denial, right? So
Mhm.
either one of those takes us out of
Yeah.
the fullness
Yeah.
of what really this
Mhm.
moment or the reality of the situation
Mm-hmm.
could be.
Yeah. So, when we talk about coming from a space of curiosity, just in general, when we're talking about this type of practice, what comes up for you with all that besides this?
Questions.
Questions.
Not questions to find answers necessarily, but just questions. Like if we're going to, here's the running monologue of our of our thinking space in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I do this better? What's wrong with me here? Or like all of those are kind of questions, but statements.
They are. Yeah. We question them, but yeah.
We're
they're
not-
stories.
Right. We're not really looking in a reflective manner
Mhm.
to sort of find ways to grow outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
We're just like spitting out the story of our limitations and, slightly or a lot negative.
Yeah.
Right.
Our fears.
A curious place could really be about, I just noticed that my internal reaction to this situation that just happened. I wonder what that's about.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we're doing a lot of wondering. We're asking questions from a place of really actually being open to it.
Yeah. Right.
Not I just got mad again because that person
Yeah.
sort of did that thing again to me.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And to me, that's really powerful. That reminds me of a experience I had not too long ago where I became really aware of this stab of jealousy that I had in a situation. And it surprised me. And I had no idea where it came from. And I just let it sit there. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Where did that come from? And I automatically sometimes want to run with that and go, let me chart my evidence. Your
Mhm.
Honor,
Yeah.
I think I can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that my jealousy is a result of these 6 interrelated factors. Boom, 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 boom.
Mm-hmm.
And what's encouraging in this process from a place of presence, of practicing that, it just sat there.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of doing that, it was, I'll leave that question open. It hasn't been answered. It hasn't been answered. And I'm really glad, actually, because what it told me was, okay, jealousy still exists for you.
And everyone else.
And everyone else,
Mhm.
here it is. And what was more important is I didn't feed it with a story or supercharge it with more energy or blame it
Mm-hmm.
on this situation, the people, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It felt good not to do anything like that with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that felt like an accomplishment enough, right? That felt good enough.
Well, what else?
What else is there?
What else could be more helpful?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is natural emotion state
Mm-hmm.
that we all experience from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
If it becomes something that's very chronic and creating a lot of difficulty in our life, then it's probably being fed by a lot of things.
Yeah.
The stories like you talked about. And so then there may be at some point, cause for concern. But in general, when we just sort of acknowledge and welcome and give space to, again, emotions are energy. So they
Yeah.
just kind of float in and they float out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we're just a container.
Yeah. And it went away.
Mm-hmm.
Went away. I mean, and I honestly didn't want it polluting anything in this situation because it wasn't a bad thing at all. And it wasn't from a bad place. It just kind of flew out there. And so I kind of smirked at it after a while. It was like,
Well, it's
all right.
one of those emotions that it's not one of the pleasant ones.
No, it's not. It's not. It's very threatening. Jealousy feels really threatening, because there's an intensity to it, that sometimes, it can be envious of something or someone or something like that. And that always feels a little more, not like a stab, more like a steady weakening over time, even though it's from the same root. The stabs of jealousy for me always feel powerful when they happen. And I found them frightening. Because they scream out something bad's going to happen, right? That's the story. So it was interesting to experience it something different.
Yeah.
It didn't freak me out. It was more like, whoa, I was not expecting you to be at my door.
Right. But I think the story of jealousy being threatening is a story.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's what I
okay.
mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
Once upon a time, that was, yes. If I'm jealous, there's something imminent bad is going to happen.
Right.
That's the story. This was different. This was more like, whoa, like when somebody, jumps out or somebody steps out and surprises you somewhere that you weren't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
It felt more like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt really nice to not have it be so, to feel threatening, for me not to make up a story.
Right. You didn't feed it.
I didn't feed it.
Yeah. Because that's the part where it gets bigger when we feed it with a bunch of stuff. And I think too, any of the unpleasant emotions we've learned, again, we've talked about this, we've learned that to think of those as problems.
Yeah.
They're not problems, they're human emotions that we all have.
Mm-hmm.
But when we have a story about them as being problems, that's when they obviously will become a problem.
Yeah.
If you want them to be a problem.
Yeah. Well, and that's, you can always there's a quick shorthand sometimes that happens. You can tell if you're making up a story about that. It's like, well, I shouldn't be upset about that.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't be sad about that. Or I shouldn't be jealous, or I shouldn't be angry.
Well, any of the shoulds, we know this.
Bullshould.
Yes. Those are
Yes.
stories. Anytime the shoulds are coming up.
Yep. Yeah, I
Those
feel
are
like
stories.
I should know better, or that type of thing. That's a clear sign that leaps out to me.
Right. So that would be a great time to get more curious
Exactly.
as opposed to
Exactly.
great signal.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something that we all can do, right? When you catch yourself in a should, go, whoa, where did that come from?
Mhm.
And then let it sit there for a little while.
Right. Or even, wow, that was surprising.
Yeah.
Or, maybe I can be open to this a little bit more here. Like, so because anytime we give more space for the emotion, it's going to subtly shift.
Yes.
So we might even get a little more clarity with just allowing it to hang out.
Yeah, and in my experience, one of the things that helped lead that eventually out the door was as that energy shifted, not feeding it, letting it sit. What it reminded me of is, okay, really one of the things I can take from this is I really care about this situation. It matters to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it matters to me. Okay, you sort of knew that. Here's an example of it from a weird direction, unexpected direction.
Mhm.
There was nothing else to do with it.
But wouldn't you say any unpleasant emotion tells us that something matters to us?
I would.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I
because
would.
we have an unpleasant emotion about it.
I would,
right?
yeah. Because it matters enough.
Because it matters.
Right.
Right. If it didn't matter, we would probably have no emotion about it,
Mhm.
or not something that we would say is unpleasant.
Right. It would just be his. Right. Like, I don't care. Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, though, that's a big deal. To go like,
So-
oh, wow, I noticed that, and then not feed that beast,
Totally. Yeah.
and then have it be a reminder of that positive element of that. Oh, I care about this.
You don't always need a positive, JD.
I know.
Just it can be unpleasant.
be
And
unpleasant
it can
to
just
say.
be unpleasant.
I know.
We don't have to turn it around. But we can cultivate, to your point, we can cultivate a lot of different sort of feeling states in our body also when we're not stuck in our stories.
Right.
So we don't, so acknowledging really what's there, we can certainly from there cultivate a sense of gratitude.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. But we don't necessarily have to do that to be okay either.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good clarification because that's absolutely right. Because there's times where it just doesn't feel good, period.
Right.
That's
Well,
it.
no matter what we do,
That's
it's not going to feel good. And I think that's a part of the perfectionism, right? We learned like, okay, unpleasantness is, then I better change this around right away to show that I can do this.
Yeah.
Right.
How soon can I get rid of it?
Yeah. Okay. Now I got rid of it. So now I'm doing okay. Right. Like, okay, there's a whole nother layer of pressurization there that it kind of, that's not what we're talking about.
And then you can make the solution the problem. Right. Yeah. That's a good place for us to jump to next time.
Okay.
When we come back.
Yeah.
Because that's a really important point. So I'd like to continue on that if we get a chance.
Yep.
And we will have a chance next week when we see you for another episode of Breaking Up with RBS. Again, you can find this wherever you get your podcasts. You can find our YouTube channel. You can find our Facebook group. There's a 6-week self-mastery course. There's an upcoming webinar. There's a lot of opportunities to deal with those BS stories. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode. We will see you next week with more. I am JDK Winnikin.
And I'm Tani Santabria.
Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.
Stop it now, I mean it.
I don't think he felt anything after the crash.
I'm in my groove. Here we go.